Hello, everyone. Welcome to Talking Logistics, where we have conversations with thought leaders and newsmakers in the supply chain logistics industry. And it's my great pleasure to welcome to today's program Eric Meister, who is the Chief Operating Officer at LeanLogistics. And today we're going to talk about the growing demand for flexible transportation solutions. Now, when I talk to supply chain executives and I ask them, what's some of the biggest challenges you're facing today? By far, the biggest challenge that they face, what I hear from them is keeping up with the rapid pace of change. And certainly, flexibility is one of those words that you hear a lot of, historically when it comes to supply chain logistics. But considering the rapid pace of change and the challenges that supply chain executives are facing today, it's arguably, more critical today than ever before. And we're going to talk about the importance of flexibility and what that means from a transportation standpoint today. Just want to, remind everyone that if you do have a question for Eric as we're having our conversation here, you can go ahead and post that via the submit a question button or via the chat feature. And if we've got time, I can, I'll try to weave that into the conversation. If you are joining us as a visitor, you do have to sign up first before you can ask a question. So with that, Eric, welcome to the program.
Great, Adrian. It's always a pleasure to speak with you.
So Eric, before we talk about flexibility and what that means from a transportation standpoint, I always like to ask my guests, how they got involved with logistics to begin with. So, why don't you tell us a little bit about your career path, how and why you got involved with logistics, and what your current role and responsibilities are there at LeanLogistics.
Sure. I started my career in finance and accounting with various roles in consulting and in corporate. I had an opportunity early in my career to move from accounting and finance to logistics when the CEO of the company that I was working for came into my office on a Saturday and said, "There's a role in distribution," so I'll date myself with the term distribution. That's been open for about 6 months. It's a complete mess. If you're interested in making a real impact, this is it, and you start on Monday. You have 6 months to fix it or else. And I, uh, I took that job, and there wasn't an or else. And fundamentally, the other thing he said was, if you want to just crunch numbers for the rest of your life, that's fine. But if you actually want to see how things work, supply chain and logistics is where you need to be. And fundamentally, what I found as I've continued in my career in supply chain is that that's what it's about. It's about learning about how things work. After that opportunity, I was the director of logistics and supply chain at Barilla Pasta, responsible for transportation, deployment, warehousing, and customer service. And I've also been a principal at a third-party logistics company. I joined LeanLogistics in 2011, and my current role is Chief Operating Officer, responsible for customer commercial relationships, as well as all the service teams, which include managed transportation, technology deployment, transportation procurement, supply chain optimization, and customer support.
Great background there, Eric. I mean, I think the finance piece is interesting because, when I ask a lot of supply chain executives, what's that one skill area that area in your background or your knowledge that you think you need to firm up to be a more successful leader? By far, the response I get is finance, being able to speak the language of the CFO. So I think it's kind of unique that you kind of started out from that perspective and have brought that into the logistics role.
And that's consistent with our conversations with supply chain leaders as well, is that when you're looking at some of the challenges that they have, a lot of them revolve around finance and accounting.
Yeah. So great background. It sounds, obviously you're coming at it now from a technology managed services perspective. You've come at it from the front lines, being a transportation executive yourself. And so I want to kind of start with that, right? I mean, you were in the front lines when you were with Barilla and the other roles, in transportation management. Now in your current role, you get to talk to a lot of manufacturers and retailers, executives from those companies that are now on the front lines and facing some of these challenges. What are some of the challenges and opportunities you're hearing from executives today, and what's changed or different from when you were in the front lines?
Sure. There's some fairly consistent themes. I think one theme that certainly has is a frequent topic of conversation recently is ensuring customer alignment in challenging transportation capacity markets. So with some of the challenges that we've had in the near term here on transportation capacity, executives are very interested in learning how they can balance the levers of service and cost, ensure capacity to take care of their customers, at the same time implementing business processes and procedures that make them a shipper of choice. So that's a consistent theme that we hear often. Another one is implementing effective and sustained cross-functional supply chain change in response to competitive pressures. So whether it's industry consolidation, new competitors coming into the marketplace, divestitures, acquisitions, change is constant, and supply chain executives are always looking to ensure that they have continuous improvement over time and that the changes are not just a one and done type situation. So that's a consistent theme. How do we continually improve our organization and our performance? A third topic is accessing supply chain talent and expertise. What we see is a kind of a barbell where there's a lot of great talent, new talent that's been well trained and well educated and is very technology savvy, kind of early in their careers. And then at the other end of the barbell, there's a group that's of seasoned veterans with a lot of experience, and the part in the middle, those with kind of that combination of skill sets and experience, is where there's a huge need out there. So although accessing supply chain talent in general is a challenge, we really see that middle part as an area where folks struggle. And I think the fourth thing that we hear a lot is from executives is having their supply chain narrative understood by capital allocators to drive long-term investment. So ensuring that they're presenting their story to their executive team and management team in a way that fosters support and understanding for some of the challenges and opportunities that they have.
Yeah, those are the
I'm sorry,
no,
Adrian. One thing I would on that point, there's a really good book, The New Supply Chain Agenda by Ruben Sloan, which is a really good primer for anyone who's wants to how better understand, articulate the opportunities in supply chain to a C-level audience. So I'd recommend that for anybody who's interested.
yeah, no, great book. I've had the chance to read that, and I'm actually going to be presenting with Ruben at a conference, this summer, introducing the topic and introducing him as one of the keynote speakers. So I think it provides a lot of great food for thought. I think it addresses kind of the need to think differently, in this type of environment and really transform your processes. You hit upon a number of different, topics that I hear as well from a lot of executives. Certainly the talent is something that I've written about and talked a lot about the talent shortage. I hadn't quite heard it described from a barbell perspective, which I think is a kind of a unique way to look at it. And I think you're right. You kind of see it at those two extremes, and really kind of the middle is where that there is some thinning out, if you will, or some opportunity there. Certainly, and then with capacity, certainly that's becoming at the forefront of a lot of transportation executives' concerns. With hours of service and the loss of capacity during the downturn and everything else. So good to hear that a lot of the things that I've been hearing kind of echo with what you've been hearing as well. So you talked about managing change, and I mentioned that in my opening comments, and really it's really the pace of change that's changing so quickly, and the fact that flexibility now, which has always been a buzz term, but I think now it's got some meat to it, and people are really trying to think through, okay, well, what does flexibility actually mean, and then get more specific, what does it mean in transportation? So when you hear about the need to have a flexible transportation solution, what defines that? What are the attributes of a flexible transportation solution?
Yeah, and just kind of feeding off the last question, and it kind of feeds into flexibility is what's changed over time. And one of what I've seen over my tenure in supply chain is every supply chain is now global, right? So the continued flattening of the earth, in Tom Friedman's words, continues, and every supply chain has either employees, customers, suppliers, manufacturing someplace else in the world. So that that continues. The speed of change, as you mentioned, is business cycles, business models, consolidation, acquisitions continue to accelerate in their pace, and then probably more importantly for supply chain folks is the expectation on the response to those changes is always shortening. So the expectation that you're going to have a quick and accurate response to anything that happens in your environment continues, the response time continues, the expectation around that response time continues to shorten. Data, more data from inside and outside the organization, you know, understanding what's important and what's not, what is truly actionable versus just noise is a continuing challenge. And then supply chain technology itself has been definitely an enabler and an accelerator of the changes that I just mentioned. Initially, I think technology, when I got into supply chain, technology was separate from supply chain. It was not an integrated component. But now, all successful supply chains are fully integrated with technology and understand how to adopt and leverage technology. And it really differentiates the winners and losers in the supply chain space. And so the thing that technology also enables is the flow of work and opportunities to those that are that have that expertise to leverage and adopt technology. And how that kind of relates to a flexible supply chain is transportation solution is ultimately executives are looking for a flexible solution that gives them organizational capacity in the face of rapid change. So having the ability to flex up or down, pull in the appropriate resources and business processes as needed in order to support the change, which in a lot of cases can't be anticipated, or ultimately kind of what the future challenges may not be unknown. So from a transportation solution perspective, my perspective is that having a flexible solution means that you're increasing your organizational capacity through the assurance of a scalable solution that allows access to best-in-class expertise with the right mix of technology and service for your current business, but also with continued innovation that will support your future needs, which again may be unclear or unknown at the present time. And if you look at the components of that flexible transportation solution, there's the delivery model, functionality, and services. From a delivery model's perspective, software as a service or SaaS, whether that's CRM, Salesforce, ERP, NetSuite, or backing up your own personal data on Carbonite, really is the technology model that provides ease of access, ability to leverage application and infrastructure expertise, has great scalability, and really fosters the rapid development of networks outside the four walls of a given organization. Also has the added benefit, financial benefit of matching savings and costs. The second component of the flexible transportation solution is functionality. And having embedded best business practice into a comprehensive suite of lifecycle transportation management tools that can be implemented incrementally or by modular is key to providing that flexibility. And more, Adrian, I think we're going to talk a little bit about technology innovation later, but I think having the flexibility on the way that you deploy technology and functionality is key to ensuring that there's the right mix of technology and service. And finally, being able to layer services on top of a strong technology platform, whether it's analytics and benchmarking, transportation procurement, market intelligence, transportation execution, supply chain engineering, project management, as needed, provides that additional bandwidth in challenging times. So I think the final leg of that services stool is continued strategic engagement as a service over time to ensure that the return on investment is delivered.
Yeah, no, very interesting points there. I mean, I think from a technology standpoint, obviously, as business processes change, the ability to, bring in, new functionality quickly and rapidly, I think is key. And software as a service or cloud computing is obviously playing a role in that. We talked a little bit about, talent and being able to, leverage, the people side of the equation, be able to scale that up and down, or bring in, knowledge and insights from whether it's internal to the organization or external, whether it's, your business partners, your suppliers, your 3PLs, your technology providers. I think is going to be critical in terms of being able to be a flexible, organization. Because the reality is, it's going to be impossible for one single company to have all the talent internally that they need to, address the different challenges that they need. Um, so let's maybe give some examples. I mean, obviously you work with a lot of manufacturers and retailers. Can you give us some examples of how some of your clients are leveraging flexibility
Sure.
within their operations?
Sure, I can give you some recent examples about how we've helped customers kind of deploy flexible solutions across their supply chain. One recent example is we had a food manufacturer that was doing a complete relaunch of their product offering that involved setting up a new distribution network, moving away from a direct-to-store, private fleet-based distribution model and moving to a more traditional DC retail DC distribution model. And as a result of the reorganization of the business, a lot of the knowledge and expertise in the company was no longer there, and specifically expertise around DC distribution in the retail segment didn't exist. They also were, as part of the relaunching of the business, they were implementing new systems, including ERP and planning systems, and needed to do that stand-up of effectively a stand-up of a supply chain in about 2 months. So we put together a solution, a combination of technology and services, which provided a ramp up and kind of a phased approach so that they had um, the right mix of solution available to them at the beginning, at the launch, and then we could ramp up more sophisticated solutions as their supply chain needs increase. So we had a plan that was based on milestone achievement, that we could accelerate the deployment of services and technology at 60, 90, and 120 days. And probably most important to that process was having the appropriate data available to allow them to understand where they were on that journey and course correct as we went. So the services we provided to that customer were transportation execution, network modeling, the placement of helping them identify the placement of the DCs and the sourcing, procurement, carrier contract support, evaluating mode options based on shelf life and inventory, and then identifying the impact of transportation on and sourcing on pricing and customer pickup allowances. And so it was a dynamic process. Not all the not all the challenges could be identified at the beginning just because of the nature of the process. And really what we ended up being is an extension of their supply chain. And the end of that story is that the launch was successful, and they continued to grow a really dynamic business. So that was an exciting opportunity for us to provide a foundation of technology, but then also layer in those services as appropriate. We have another example of a food manufacturer who has been a technology-only customer of ours for a long time, operating in a decentralized planning environment. They recently went through a reorganization and some divestitures with a renewed focus on their core business. And as part of that process, they identified centralization of transportation as a key capability that they were going to need in order to be successful going forward. Initially, they were focused on expanding their utilization of our technology and developing that capability internally. But as they went through that process, their need for speed, data, and then access to a broader set of supply chain solutions kind of drove them to look at other options. The other concern that they had was making significant supply chain changes in a very challenging transportation capacity market. So they wanted a solution that would reduce the risk of making that change in that type of environment. So for this customer, we leveraged our existing technology platform to drive a solution that included services around procurement and market intelligence so that they knew to the extent that they were going to make changes in their network where it made sense to go to market and where it didn't. Helping them with the internal change management as the responsibilities were transitioned from the decentralized locations to centralized planning. The managed transportation service offering that we have, which is managing their daily transportation execution. And then analytics, which will help them understand the improvements that they were driving in both cost and service as they navigated through this challenging environment. And then the final example I gave is, and the previous two examples were fairly broad in scope and large in scope. But when we talk about these trends of flexibility, they don't have to be so large and broad. An example is we have a long-standing technology customer whose customers had significant changes in their networks, and so as a result of that, they wanted to take a look at the sourcing strategy that they had for their existing customers and see if it still made sense. And so we were able to perform that analysis for them, primarily because we had really good data in the TMS to start with. We had the expertise to run the analysis, and then importantly for this customer, there was the technology and business process on the back end to efficiently implement the results of the analysis. So again, there's this topic of flexibility, and the examples can be wide ranging, and they can be very tactical in nature and kind of small in scope, or they can be very strategic and broad.
Great examples there, and the way I look at it, and I think you see that across those examples you just gave, is, and this is a trend I've been seeing and writing about for several years now, is that we're really seeing the coming together of, consulting, operations, or managed services, if you will, and technology. And when you kind of take a step back and you look at what shippers are looking for, they're really, and what defines kind of the solution that they're looking to help them either expand their business or meet whatever challenges. It seems that it has a combination of those three things, and it's not just consulting, it's not just manage an operation for me, and it's not just technology. Is that they're looking for some blend of that, and really the folks that are providing those kind of solutions is really a mix, right? I mean, there's technology. I don't even know what to call lean logistics these days, right? Because you do you're just not a technology provider anymore, right? So there are folks like Lean Logistics and some of your peers in the industry. There's some 3PLs that are doing this. So it's really those solution providers, both 3PLs and those that might have come at it from technology ahead of time, that are really bringing in those pieces of the puzzle, are the ones that arguably are looking to address kind of the requirements that shippers are looking for as they're looking to become more flexible. Do you agree with kind of that assessment?
Absolutely, and it's customer driven. So when a customer comes to us, typically the first question is they're not asking about technology per se. What they're asking about is, what is the solution set? How do you solve my supply chain problems? The expectation is that technology will be a important component of that solution, and that it's best in class technology, and that it simplifies business processes. But it's foundational for that broader overall solution, and fundamentally to be able to provide that, you have to have a good understanding of customer supply chain issues and challenges, and how your specific solution sets kind of plug into that in the appropriate way. But I absolutely agree that you're seeing across all providers and kind of all segments of supply chain that those providers are moving to solution-based types of offerings.
So let's talk about the technology component of that solution. And you kind of touched upon this a little bit, but a lot of buzz today around mobile, business intelligence, cloud, software as a service, right? How are these trends kind of driving innovation in transportation management today, and what capabilities are your customers and companies you're talking to, what capabilities are they looking for in a TMS related to those things?
Sure. So cloud is definitely a force, and to me, cloud's about scalability and the ease of transition to work to areas of expertise. So really facilitating the movement of work to areas where the expertise resides. Mobile and business intelligence are about data and timeliness. So getting real-time data, getting the best data possible. And I think the trend that we see that covers all of those is a desire on the behalf of customers to have simplicity, and looking to providers to give them that simplicity. And Da Vinci said simplicity is the ultimate sophistication. And as supply chain technology matures, having solutions that are engineered to be simple is really a key tech trend. across all those kind of new areas of technology. So whether it's the user interface and the business process that are embedded into the technology that promote ease of use and adoption, or if it's the ability to seamlessly integrate with supply chain partners in a way that doesn't strain IT resources, or it's the ability to gather data and assimilate data from both inside and outside the organization and filter out the noise and provide the highlights that are actually actionable, or ultimately providing solutions that allow individuals and companies to quickly expand their supply chain networks and sustain those networks. All those are kind of embedded into the direction that technology is taking, and having partners that understand that simplicity, being an expert in technology and being able to break down the complex nature of technology, whether it's infrastructure, application, business process, into a simple package that can be easily adopted by customers is key.
Great points. I last year I did a lot of writing and thinking about the user interface, and how a lot of supply chain executives and users are really looking for simpler to use, simpler to learn user interface. I hadn't really thought about the link between simplicity and flexibility, and I think as you were talking about that there, I kind of made that connection. So food for thought for another blog posting or episode.
Very good.
We're almost out of time here, Eric. So I'm gonna go ahead and ask you my last question here, kind of to wrap up. I mean, what advice would you give to shippers today? I mean, what questions should they ask themselves to determine if the transportation solution is flexible and able to keep up with the rapid changes taking place in the marketplace?
I'd say there are three questions that I would ask. Is one, if you had significant organic growth, an acquisition or a divestiture, what level of assurance do you have that your transportation solution would be able to effectively scale to the new size of your business? That would be the first question. Second question would be, does your transportation solution provide you access to the supply chain expertise that you need to continually improve your business over time? And then the third question would be, does your transportation solution allow you to confidently and convincingly present your supply chain narrative, or are you presenting that narrative in spite of your transportation solution?
Three great questions. I'm sure of companies that have their Friday meetings, those could be on the agenda tomorrow, to discuss with their team. Eric, thank you for joining us today. I know we just kind of scratched the surface on this, and this is going to be a topic that I plan to write about and maybe address in future episodes as well. So, thank you very much for joining us today and getting the conversation started.
Thank you, Adrian. Always a pleasure.
And thank all of you who joined us today. If you are watching this program on demand and you'd like to ask Eric a question, you can go ahead and find this episode on talkinglogistics.com, and you can post your question or comment there for Eric, and I'm sure Eric will be happy to follow up after the fact. So with that, thank you very much for joining us today, and look forward to seeing you in a future episode of Talking Logistics. Have a great day.